The snow was falling sideways, slashing across the wide Montana plains like nature's own fury unleashed. Darkness had set in hours ago, but it was the kind of night where the sky seemed to grow darker with every gust. Jack Callahan, a 68-year-old rancher with hands like leather and a heart as steady as the earth he walked, stood in the doorway of his barn, listening. There it was again, a low, distant whistle, weak, barely cutting through the wind. It had to be the old passenger train, the 640 from Billings. He squinted into the blizzard, heart tightening. It shouldn't be running in weather like this. Not through the mountain pass. Not on that track. Not tonight. He reached for his old radio, tried channel after channel. Nothing but static. The power had gone out an hour ago. Cell towers were down. There'd been no word from the outside since midday. Out past the barn, 2 miles of private railway track cut across his ranch, an old agreement from decades ago, back when the rail company still honored handshakes and coffee over contracts. Jack had kept that stretch clear every winter, mostly out of habit. It wasn't his responsibility anymore. But he kept doing it. For the what-ifs. For nights like this. He saddled his horse, Daisy, a sturdy chestnut mare with a sharp sense for danger. He bundled up in his sheepskin coat and headed out, lantern swinging in the storm. The wind fought every step, and visibility was no more than a few feet. But Jack knew his land like he knew the back of his weathered hands. By the time he reached the tracks, he saw it, frozen in time like a ghost from another era. The passenger train was stuck in a snowdrift, the engine wheezing steam, the windows dim. Jack's heart sank. He knew what it meant. No power. No heat. And inside the train were likely dozens of people, strangers caught in a storm, lost in the middle of nowhere. He dismounted, banged on the conductor's door. A face appeared, pale, eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. "We've been stuck 2 hours," the conductor shouted over the wind. "No radio. We've got children on board. Elderly. We don't know how long we'll last." Jack didn't hesitate. "Follow me," he said. "We're getting you out." Back at the ranch, the main barn was warm, thanks to the old iron stove Jack had kept burning for his animals. He opened every stall, laid down hay, and grabbed blankets. He fetched water from the backup tank. He turned his home, his barn, his entire ranch into a shelter. Trip after trip, Jack and Daisy pulled sleds across the snow. He wrapped shivering hands in his own gloves. Lifted toddlers from the train with arms that hadn't known a break in 40 years. He brought 71 souls to safety that night, passengers from every walk of life. A grandmother from Kansas. A single mother with a newborn. An Afghan refugee on his way to reunite with family in Seattle. All of them warmed by the fire, fed by Jack's modest stores, and held by the sheer will of one man who wouldn't let them be forgotten. When emergency crews finally arrived 2 days later, they found the ranch transformed into a temporary village, laughter echoing off barn walls, strangers sharing soup and stories, kids drawing on feed sacks with bits of charcoal. The media descended. Cameras captured Jack standing in front of his barn, arms crossed, as humble as a man can be when the world calls him a hero. "I didn't do anything special," he said. "Just didn't close the gate. Didn't turn my back." But what Jack did that night was more than special. He reminded a fractured world what compassion looked like. He defied orders to close his railway because he knew rules are no match for humanity. He saved lives not just with warmth and shelter, but with something rarer, the fierce, unrelenting belief that every life matters. And that's the story they tell now in schools and sermons, in podcasts and over dinner tables. The rancher who kept the track open. The man who listened when no one else could. The storm that tested one soul, and found in him the fire to light up the dark. In a world too often divided, Jack Callahan brought people together with hay bales and hot cocoa, with blankets and barn doors wide open. Not because he had to. But because he could. And sometimes, that's all it takes to save the world: one open gate, one act of kindness, one stubborn man who refuses to close the track.